Welcome to the My Postgrad Life podcast. Today, I'm joined by Lauren Harrington and Matt Beretta, a transcendent couple of 8 years that currently reside in the Chicago metro area. Matt is currently a consulting manager for a large-scale global professional services firm, while Lauren is a soon-to-be graduate of Northwestern University, where she'll be obtaining a master's in engineering design. Hear what they have to say about managing long-distance relationships as a young couple, growing together with an inspirational partner, and what foundations can lead to long-term relationship success. Let's begin. What was the hardest part of maintaining your long-distance relationship throughout the years?
Okay, so I think when you are long distance and you only see each other, for a weekend every month or 2 months, there can be a lot of pressure on the time that you do spend together. You want everything to go perfectly. Any hiccup can feel like it ruined the weekend. So the hardest part for us, I think, was taking that pressure off and saying, let's just spend this time together, let's enjoy it, and treat it like it were any normal weekend that we get to spend with each other if we got to spend all of our weekends together, and removing that pressure. I think that was the biggest or the hardest part.
Is there, when you say like taking the pressure off, is it more of a mindset thing, or is it specific things that you do or specific things maybe you don't do, that you're actively thinking about? Like, what do you mean by taking the pressure off?
Yeah, it's totally a mindset thing. You're talking for weeks planning this trip. You're super excited. You guys have been gushing over it. And it's okay to just rot on the couch. You don't need every minute planned out, every activity. Of course you want to have fun dates planned and all that stuff, but understanding that rotting on the couch together is also fun and chill, and quality time spent is a mindset and is something that both people kind of have to agree on.
Yeah, that's great to think about, because you're right. There is all this pressure about we only have, especially when you put a quantitative amount. I mean, we have 72 hours together. We got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. And I've noticed, I guess, throughout relationships that I've been in, just, sometimes when you get tired, that's when something stupid is said, or that's when like something you really don't mean, or you just do like dumb stuff. And all of a sudden now you go from, you're trying to push in all this stuff, but now you have an argument on top of that. Now you have this problem to work at. So yeah, I definitely agree with taking the pressure off. I think that's a huge thing. Matt, is there anything like from your perspective that you would look at? I think too, in this situation, Lauren, you were visiting Matt a good bit, but Matt, you were also visiting Lauren a good bit. Like what was the split like?
I would say it was probably 65-35 in terms of, so up front I went to Pittsburgh a lot more than she came to Chicago. Then it's transitioned like later in our time being long distance. And I think what she says is a good point. Like, it's like learning to appreciate like the small moments. And like for me, it was less the pressure on the weekend itself than the lack of spontaneity. So like everything had to be very structured. So it was like Friday night we're doing dinner. We have like a dinner reservation, and like you feel like you need to like slam like a month's worth of activities into one weekend. And there's a difference between like making up for lost time and trying to do too much for lost time. And so like as you said, you lose the romance in it because it becomes super structured, and that internal clock of just like, we have 72 hours together, so one night's done. Now you're already thinking, oh, there's only 2/3 left. And then by the time it's Saturday night, it's 2/3 done, and you're like, oh my God, you're already missing them before they're gone. And then so that's just like, as she said, like it's an extra weight to the activities, like especially that last day before. Like let's say you have a Sunday night flight, like you're not going to have the same like fun you would at brunch on a normal Saturday as you do when you're flying out and you're saying goodbye for another month. Like in your head, you're already thinking about it's going to be X days till I see you again.
Yeah. Do you think there's kind of like I feel like that could apply to so much more than just relationships. I feel like there's this whole modern, just cultural thing where it's like everybody's thinking about the next thing. There's always like this big rush instead of like slowing down, taking a deep breath, and just enjoying what you have. And Lauren, like what you were saying is enjoy the little things and pressure, have possession and prize of those, as well as the bigger stuff. how do you keep it fresh like that? So I know you want to balance that kind of lazy time together, but also want to keep things new and fresh, but you also have work going on, and you also have school going on and life going on, and all these different aspects that are kind of simultaneously all crashing together. How do you stay on top of that as far as mentally clear? How are you communicating those types of things? I can imagine communication is key in this. How are you going about that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not really sure that we were thinking too much about it when we were in it with long distance, about keeping it, fresh and exciting, but also chill without the pressure. That balance, I think, is something we hadn't really figured out completely, maybe until the end of long distance, because it was something that came up a lot. I think that we were putting a lot of pressure on these weekends, and in retrospect, I think it's more of an observation for us than really trying to problem solve it in the moment. So
I disagree with that. I think we did start like ratcheting down the amount of things. Like it wasn't like we stopped loading the days as much, and I think it took a lot of pressure off. It was no more like, this is the morning activity, this is the afternoon activity, this is like dinner, and this is what we're doing after dinner. And it became a little bit more like we had things we wanted to do over the weekend, and like rough times we'd consider doing them, but it became less like, we absolutely have to do this. Like we had like two or three things that we really, really wanted to do, and then everything else was like, if it happens, it's nice. Like I think of like when we were in Pittsburgh, and like we talked about going to the Phibbs Conservatory a lot to like walk and like see like nature and stuff. And it got kicked like a visit or two just because it was like something we wanted to do, but it wasn't like a make or break. And I think figuring out like what your make or breaks are as a couple is really important. So like you only have so much energy, you only have so much time. So picking 2 or 3 things in those like brief spurts that you really want to do is super important. And then the rest of the time you can have a little bit more of that like natural just spending time with your partner. And I think towards the end we started to get that, but there was a long time where both of us did it. Like it's interesting too, because you're like stepping into someone else's life. Like I think that was like the biggest difference between long distance and now being back together is like she had her life in Pittsburgh and I had my life in Evanston, and they were very like segmented. Like obviously we were a unifying like link between, but her day to day and my day to day were about as far apart as they could be. So, and I think that was part of the thing that put pressure on it too, is like I would be stepping into her life in Pittsburgh. So there's naturally, you're going to throw off each other's rhythms. Like and then the same thing when she'd come see me. It's like, you're used to living day to day as a solo. And then it goes from 0 to 100 and back to 0 in terms of time together, which is, there's no ramping, there's no ramp up, there's no ramp down. And I think because of that, there's naturally just going to be some tension and like a little bit of bickering, a little bit of like different sleep schedules, different like basic stuff that just you don't think about until you're actually together.
can I offer a story to
Lauren, by all means, go ahead.
support this point?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what Matt said is super true, that it is hard to step into someone's life like that, just with a flight, especially such a short flight. It was like only an hour and a half. And there was one time where Matt lived with 4 other guys in college. So it was a house of 5 guys and me when I would come to visit, which they were all very nice. There was no like big problems or anything. But I came on a Saturday one time, and it was something crazy like a 6 a.m. flight. And I might have been out the night before, like I don't know, but it was a 6 a.m. flight, and I got in. Matt drove me back from the airport, and his whole house was having this massive party in the backyard with a bouncy house with shoulder to shoulder people packed in the yard. I am exhausted. I'm like so tired. I'm the whole drive. I'm like, I'm going to go back and take a nap. Like I'm going to go back. And Matt's like, I don't know how it's going to work out for you.
Oh my God.
And the garage was in the backyard. So I had to like walk through the whole backyard, be like, excuse me, like, sorry, with my massive suitcase.
Wait, I was carrying your suitcase.
Okay, Matt was carrying my suitcase.
Let the record show Matt was carrying the suitcase. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I was holding
Good
it
point.
over my head because you couldn't walk through with a suitcase. I was holding it over the top.
Yeah, so it was one of those moments where we got to his bedroom and he was like, you got to pull it together. You got to go put a cute little outfit on and say hi to everyone.
Oh man.
And
I don't know if that's how I phrased it.
that's definitely not how he phrased it. That was I took creative liberties there, but yeah, it was basically one of those moments where it was like, this is what's going on, and we have no control over it because it's his roommate's, his house, or his roommate's house as well. So this party's happening this weekend, and we got to work around it, and that's kind of what stepping into each other's life means sometimes, is that there's compromises and situations that are kind of out of your control.
That was a great story. I mean, you're right. That is the perfect representation of compromise. You kind of, I'm sure that's not what you expected to, go into the weekend with, having all those people there. You probably lost some valuable hours of sleep, but you're right. The purpose of you being there was to go see Matt.
And I had fun.
And
it was fun.
And you have a great story,
Yeah.
and that's something your father always talks about, having a Rolodex of stories, to go back to.
It's something I said to Matt before we started today.
Dang. That's a great example. Thanks for bringing that up. Are there any other, maybe not such elaborate stories, but are there any other things that stick out from your time long distance that maybe kind of change how you guys go about your relationship now, and like how you solve certain problems, or even things that come up that it's like maybe others that kind of have been together in the same place, for their entirety of their relationship? You guys have been together for how long too now? I know it's been a while.
Go ahead.
8 years.
8 years.
8 years.
Almost 8 years.
8 years and 2 weeks.
Yeah.
8 years. Wow. See, guys, take notes. See how specific Matt knows, to the exact hour, I bet too. We don't need to test that. But are there other things from the long distance time that kind of helps now, and maybe has pushed you further as a couple?
Yeah, it's just meeting your partner where they are. So like, we even now, like, we don't live together, and she has a very intense like schedule in grad school. She's trying to figure out what she's going to do after. So working a thesis, applying, that's very different than what I go through day to day. I'm traveling 3 to 4 days a week, so it's just not boxing into like what you think is a typical dating window. So for example, like, we've 2 or 3 times now like overlapped in the airport. So like, I'll be going somewhere, she'll be coming back, and I'll get there an hour early, or she'll stay an extra hour, and we'll just like have dinner to like have a date in O'Hare, which is like sounds lame,
nice.
but it's like nice because it softens the blow a little bit.
It's romantic.
Yeah, I mean, but it's still an airport. Like,
Airports are romantic.
Sounds like a movie. That's terrific.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
but it's not boxing in. And like last week, we literally overlapped in Chicago for 3 hours, and so I met her. We Ubered back. We got lunch. Both of us worked the afternoon, and then I flew back out. So we were in the same state for under 3 hours, and we still made it count. And it was meaningful to both of us because you got to learn to recharge your batteries when you get the chance. And I think a lot of couples that start together, like in the same city, or especially if they live like really close, like under 10, 15 minutes, there's a inclination to spend every day with that person. And that's awesome. But it builds a codependence, and just like if you don't have that, suddenly it's a massive issue. Versus for us, anytime we get together, it feels like a reward.
That's actually a great thing, because I think about this all the time with all sorts of things in life, and setting up the systems where you're starting at 0, and if you don't, for example, get to see each other that week, things come up. It's not like you're going negative. You're just remaining at 0. But if you do, then you get to go up to 50 or 100 or whatever, that number is, rather than the alternative of starting at 100 and then you don't get to see each other. So now it's taken away, and now you're less than where you would have been instead of gaining on that. Lauren, is there anything that you wanted to add to that point, or any other things that stick out to you?
No, I think Matt summed it up well. I think the only thing that kind of comes to mind for me is that people say, oh, relationships are hard work. Like, and, some people scoff at that, and they're like, oh, well, it shouldn't be hard. But I think that Matt's example is what's hard, is making the time and taking the effort, whether that means waiting in the airport for an extra 2 hours or making it work and lining up schedules, I think is the part that's hard about that. But our time together is not hard.
Yeah, that's nice. And I bet that's a that's a product of being together for so long. And another thing I think about with like you guys being together for so long is, I mean, you guys are very different people, and I will say this in a very good way. You're very different people than when you first met each other. When I first met you guys, then, I'm sure I was different. I mean, we grew up all from, I mean, Matt, I've known you since sophomore year. Lauren, you came in junior year of high school. We kind of like saw each other evolve, saw each other grow. I'm sure you guys have seen each other grow quite a bit. What has that been like, being able to kind of get older in this kind of really transformative time of our lives, kind of going from, late teens to early 20s, and now entering mid 20s, and, going through college and going through career, start of your career and things like that. What has that been like, seeing one another grow and being able to grow besides each other?
This is something I say to Lauren all the time. Is it's honestly been the best part of being together with her through these formative years. Is I've gotten to watch someone I love grow into someone I love even more every day. Like, I've seen her transition from someone that's like always been passionate, and then like hone and focus those passions. And it's exciting for me to watch her explore these interests. And then in my own life, it's amazing to have a cheerleader. So like I heard a quote one time that like your partner is someone that pays witness to your life, and like it is so beautiful to have found that at a young age, because I have someone that's seen so many different sides of me in just a short time, and like I think that's only going to continue as life goes on. But as like I've gone through different phases and challenges and tribulations, like she's always been there, and she's always someone I can talk to and someone that I can lean on for support, especially when I really don't know the answer. It's just nice to have someone to talk with through a problem in a very no walls up, no holds barred, just being honest about how I feel about something. And I both from getting to watch her and getting to like have someone to pay witness to my life, it's been truly amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, Lauren, you want to say some nice things about Matt now?
No. He's kind of whiny.
No, I do completely agree with everything Matt said. When Matt and I were growing up in high school, he was such a grinder, knew what he wanted to do, really did everything to set himself up for the life that he wanted. And it's so cool that he's got that now, and he's done that. And, I was kind of someone who like didn't know what I wanted to do for a really long time. So watching that through line of the hard work that he put in when we met, kind of being able to reap the fruits, or whatever that saying is, of that now,
Yeah.
is super cool.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of him.
No, that's the guys. That was so sweet, so well put. Thank you for sharing those. We'll save those.
Sorry, I'm blushing a little bit.
We'll post those to every social media known to man, and we'll do that
please,
every
that'd be
single
great.
day the rest of the year.
You want to send it to
Maybe
my
next.
boss? That'd be sick.
Yeah, I'll send it to your boss. Yeah, that works great. Something I think about a lot is kind of this notion of, as we're in this transformative time, staying true to yourself, but also changing in a positive way. And, Matt, like you were saying about how you can be totally open and honest with Lauren, and I'm sure, Lauren, you can you can reiterate with that. I mean, you can be totally open and honest. And sometimes things get tough where you know somebody for so long, and you have to kind of say, hey, I see you going in this direction. I think that this might not be the best, or maybe you can improve with this, or vice versa. I mean, you might receive that same kind of information, and I think part of it can be like, well, I'm becoming a different person. This is kind of changing who I am, but also I want to stay true with who I've been and the things that have worked. And I think it all comes down to solid communication, trusting and respecting the other person and what they have to say. Is there anything that, I don't know, maybe can be some suggestions that when you have to suggest or give some constructive criticism or receive that on any ends? I think a lot of couples are afraid to do that. And because they don't want to rock the boat, they don't want to see things kind of like shaky, but you also need that. Are there any things that you guys do that you can express clear communication that you have set up front that, maybe can help others in that similar situation?
Yeah, so we were just talking about this, and this is tough. This is really hard. And I don't think many couples have this like down 100%. But I think when giving pointers or giving your opinion or criticism, suggestions, whatever it is to your partner, doing it in a way where it's prompted by something is maybe not always the best time, or there's a lot of fresh emotions associated with it that haven't really settled. I think, for example, like career stuff, maybe if your partner is talking to you about their career and you're just having a casual conversation, just in the kitchen, whatever, that's not really prompted by anything that, you didn't like that they didn't do, or whatever it is, I think that's way easier to just have an open conversation that's not so emotionally escalated, and maybe waiting until certain things come up, unless it's big, of course, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, if it just has to do with their life and the decisions that they're making, and they're not like the end of the world, then I think that it should wait for a more casual time where you're not so stressed out about it.
She's saying that because I do that.
I do too.
No, I think, I mean, we talked about this literally yesterday. Like, I do a lot of, like, social maneuvering, like, career-wise, and so, like, a lot of my friends turn to me for stuff like that, and it brings me joy to see people maximize their potential. So I'm always willing to read a friend's resume and give really honest, like, critical feedback about, like, even, like, little stylistic things, like, oh, I wouldn't put a period there, or, like, this looks more professional, or, like, whatever it is. And, like, I think my desire to help gets lost sometimes in the messaging, and, like, I get, like, frustrated that, like, I feel like the help's not being heard. Just because she's not actively doing it doesn't mean she's not responding to it. And so what she said is something that I've really been working on, which is, like, broach the idea and then give it, like, a day to settle. Because if you bore in that moment on something that's difficult, even if it is, like, a big life thing, like, nobody wants to be badgered, nobody wants to be lectured, and, like, even if they somewhat agree with you, the second you start, like, stacking chips against them, it feels like they have to defend themselves. Even if they, like, but now they're arguing with the fact that you're arguing, not arguing with your arguments. And so, like, I think both of us have, like, we're both hotheads, like, frankly. And so the extra hour, the extra, like, even, like, the extra overnight, like, just to, like, relax, reset, like, establish that we're on the same team, and then re-broach the same subject, I think has paid a lot of dividends for us. It doesn't need to get settled in that moment. It's something that, like, I've been trying to work through. Because at the end of the day, we're on a team. And if I'm, like, beating my teammate in a submission to get her to agree with me, that's not fun for anyone.
Yeah. No, it's a true. I mean, you can think of, like, a sports team. I mean, there's got to be some kind of element of just the approach of it. Hey, we're trying to get better together, and that's the only reason I'm bringing this up. And I think sometimes it gets like you versus them, and it's like knocking against each other, and what they're trying to have one up on me, or they're trying to. And I think if you have the expectation that your partner is looking for the best thing for you, and you can have that in a casual, non hostile environment when things are clean off the table, then I agree. I think that's best. How important is compromise with dealing things when dealing things like that?
Yeah, well, of course, compromise is super important. I think it really depends on the context too. Yeah, it's hard to say, like, compromise is super important in this, and this situation. I think it's a case by case situation, because sometimes
Someone's
you're
right.
wrong.
Sometimes
Exactly. But I think taking the time to kind of pause and think through it and not respond out of anger or whatever is the best medicine for figuring out if compromise is necessary or if someone is wrong.
How do you admit when you're wrong? When does that come to be?
You never.
I can't answer this question.
I meant to say, Matt, how do you know when you're wrong?
I usually come out and just state it, like, shit, you're right. Like, I'm like someone that's very much transgress, create the wrongdoing, and then be like, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Sorry, like I've always been a big, like, apologizer, and I think for me, like, yeah, which is great for this relationship. It's great. It means a lot to me when people acknowledge wrongdoing. Like, if someone like does something that bothers me a lot, but then they can just say like, hey, I shouldn't have done that. Like, that means much more to me than the actual act of like doing it itself. Like, as long as you can take ownership and be like, yeah, I screwed you over here or something, like, that means a lot to me. And go back to the compromise point. Like, I think compromise in that format, like, I think there is always a compromise. Like, even if you're 100% right, you still have to compromise to your partner's feelings. Like you have to give them the credit that they came to their thinking, like, logically. So the compromise there is like bringing them to your understanding, but understanding that they came from a logical place, not just like, I know I'm absolutely right. Like, how do you not see it my way? The compromise is like understanding how they think and then working them towards where the right answer might be.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think also a common fallacy, I mean, a common thing that people fall into the trap of is like, well, I compromised on this decision, so therefore when the next one comes up, it's like, now we got to compromise towards me. And there's always this like tug of war of like, who's winning what side of the compromise. How do you go about not building up those chips, not building and trying to cash in? Do you just completely let it go? Is it ever something that you think about, or is it just you just let it go and say, hey, this is the decision that we're making for the benefit of our relationship as a whole, one unit?
I usually lose.
Okay, so funny. To be honest with you, I haven't really thought about it that way in terms of, oh, well, he won this argument, so I win the next one. I think the only scenario in which that sort of back and forth of compromising applies would probably be making plans or what we're going to do during the weekend or something like that. He travels all week. Sometimes if had a hard week at school and I want to like go have fun with friends, go out for drinks, whatever, and he just wants to chill, which is totally fine. It's just based on our different schedules, it can be tricky to compromise in terms of what we want to do the whole weekend that we're together, what we want to do next weekend. And that is the situation where I think that applies.
How important is personal space, maybe now, especially that you're living in the same city? I mean, you're both in Chicago, but you're doing two different things. You have two different sets of goals. You have combined goals, things like that. How important is having your personal time, personal space?
Yeah, I think this one's really tricky for us because we live separately on the weekends or weekdays and then together on the weekends. So I live up in Evanston. Matt lives down here in downtown Chicago. And I consider myself to be a very independent person. I love my personal space. I live alone. I've lived alone for years. And not having roommate rules is great. And then when I come here, I have to remember that I don't live alone. And that can be tricky because I think Matt isn't as much of a lone wolf as maybe I am with that sort of stuff. So personal space, I can get very easily, don't talk to me. Like, I'm going to go do my makeup in the bathroom with like my podcast on and just kind of do my own thing. And that can be a little bit tricky for us, but I think we've come to understand that that's how we are.
Yeah, and even like just not feeling the pressure to always be doing the same thing. Like, she'll like do a craft, like be like crocheting or something, and then I'll be like playing Rocket League. Like, and it's like just being in the same space, but we don't even need to really interact. We'll like talk to each other like once every like 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then it'll be like, oh, like this. And then it like pauses. And being comfortable with just being in silence around each other is something that like I think comes with spending so much more time together and just being in each other's space. I do think, so we're planning to move in together this spring, and I think that it feels like there's progressive hurdles. So like there was getting used to sharing a city together, because as I said earlier, like it was two separate lives, like about a couple hundred miles apart. Like it was very much like two independent organizations like coming together. Clear merger. No, I'm joking, but there's like very real friction when you push two different lifestyles together. As she said, she's more of a lone wolf than I am, and I'm very much like a pack mentality. Like I want to be like with people. I want to be shared, and like I love shared experiences. And so like if I'm going to do something like, oh, I want to go for a run, I want to drag her for the run, and she may not want to go for the run. She never wants to go for the run.
Yeah. Well, I will say, Matt, just from my time knowing you, you have always been, you're what I call an activity friend. I mean, there is not many times that we would ever hang out where it's like, we don't have this, and this to do. I mean, and if we don't, if we say we expel them or something changes or whatever, it's like, all right, what do you want to, let's change, let's do this instead. I mean, we're like, you don't like to sit still in that manner, and like you always like stuff to do. So I can imagine for someone like that, I mean, you just, it's always nice to have kind of someone there and just like, hey, let's do that. One thing I just wrote a blog post a couple weeks ago about living alone for the first time, right? And that's something I've been experiencing. And you go from, and I mean, Lauren, you can chime in if you have anything about living alone, but the biggest adjustment I went from is when you have roommates, when you have people there, there's always the default is kind of people around. So even if you're doing stuff on your own, hanging out by yourself, playing Rocket League or whatever, I mean, you can call down to your friend, hey, you want to, I'm going to go to the grocery store. You want to come get groceries? Just kind of like micro hangout sessions like that. Whereas the default when you start living alone is like you're alone. And then if you want to initiate hanging out with people or, have somebody over or reach out or whatever, like then you have to go out and do that. So, I mean, I think there's always that dynamic that some people like and some people don't. And it always gets spun on its head. I mean, I'm sure you guys are thinking about that as you plan to move in together and plan throughout that. Is there anything, I guess it's also too something that you just experience and you kind of go from there, but are there any things that you're planning specifically as far as, hey, we want to try to set up like this, or we want to have check-ins or this, or is there anything that you're planning on when you do live in, move in together, like that, how things are going to look?
Yeah, we've definitely talked about the fact that we have to have a plan going into it and have to have a bunch of discussions because Matt and I do have very different living styles. It's true. So we're going to have to figure out what compromise looks like when we move in together and figure out division of labor, things like that you would figure out with roommates ahead of time. But there's all these emotions tied up into it too. So it's going to be a tricky conversation, but avoiding the conversation is absolutely not an option. And then also having a plan for conflict resolution, I think, is going to be really important for us as well. What happens when one of us doesn't take out the trash? Like what's going to happen then?
I don't know. What is going to happen then?
No, but it goes both ways. So it's going to be, we know that it's going to be tricky is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I have friends that moved in together in the past year, and they have a system that I think works really well. And we've talked about doing is like a once a month like status of the relationship check-in. So it's like 30 minutes like where you set like for the both of you, and like maybe you like have a glass of wine and just sit down and like chat. Like, and it's like, hey, like this month, like I think we did a great job of this. I think we could do a better job of this. And I think the phrasing there is super important. Like if you're coming at someone and saying like you never take the trash out, like that's not a productive way to have a conversation.
Yeah, not even with a regular roommate. Forget someone you're in a romantic relationship with.
Exactly, because there's everything you say has 3x the weight because it's not you going to your like dipshit buddy being like, yo, you made a huge mess, like, well, like this is your life partner, this is someone you love, and you're like, ultimately you're gonna be living together for the next 60 years. So if you start beef now, no, I think it's super important about it's not just having the conversations, but how you have the conversations. And like I think that's true with like stuff now, like because she comes here for weekends, like she brings she literally packs a suitcase every weekend, and I have a small room, and it quickly feels overwhelmed with space, and like just figuring out how to share that space has been like there's been growing pains, absolutely, but learning how to approach them in like a meaningful and fair way is really important. And I think something that was a good warm up to living together.
Yeah. You guys always seem like you have a plan, which is a good thing. And I
You
think
say we
having
do or we don't
no,
see?
no, you do, you do, you
Oh.
do. For the record, let the record show, you do seem like you always do have a plan.
I mean, we don't have a plan yet, but we have concepts of a plan.
You have plans to make a plan, and sometimes that's all the planning you
Exactly.
need right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, another plan of yours I want to kind of get some insight on is as far as when you graduate, Lauren. I mean, you can tell the people you're graduating with your master's in engineering. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Engineering
This
design.
engineering design that
That's a
comes up.
master's in science, Will. She's a scientist.
Okay.
I don't know anything about science, so we have an expert on our hands. That's coming up in March. Matt, you got recently promoted, so congratulations on that. You work in finance. What I don't know what your official thing is either. I don't know your official role. You're some finance, whatever.
It doesn't matter.
You wear a vest and a button-up shirt.
Big quarter zip guy. Big quarter zip guy.
So there's going to be a time. I mean, and not to scare you guys, but there's going to be a time where there's going to be a lot being asked from you from pulling kind of different directions at work. How do you kind of currently manage that? I know you were talking about making compromise as far as, overlapping travel and meeting up, but how are you going to try to plan, especially when that coincides with living together? Hey, work kind of needs me on this night. Maybe plans need to change around, things need to move around. How are you looking to work with that, once work really starts to get in your lives?
I actually think for this specifically, it might be easier when I start working after school, aside from the fact that we'll also be moving in together and that sort of thing. But right now in grad school, I'm on a really weird schedule. I frankly, I start working at 10 a.m., not 8 a.m., and then I'll take a big break in the middle of the day and then I'll work until late in the night, which is kind of a weird schedule compared to what he does, where he works pretty typical working hours, maybe a little bit later than that. But I mean, during the day is what I'm saying, where I'm definitely more of a night owl where I'll work until 1. So I think both having steady jobs will make our schedules a little bit easier to align. Of course, Matt does have to travel a lot for work, but he already has to do all those things. So on my end, I will probably be a little bit more lined up with his schedule than I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Forced to conform is what she's saying.
Yeah, I wish I could work crazy hours in a typical job, but not crazy long hours, crazy night hours.
I think too, it's going to be important in that we both want dog, we want kids, all this stuff down the line, but not loading it up with extra obligations from the start, I think is really important, because we do have lives that are going to be pretty in flux. We both love, outside of work, obviously, to travel, go out to eat, go out with friends, stuff like that, and prioritizing ourselves for the first few months seems like an important way to make that transition easier, rather than putting let's say we moved in and immediately got a dog. That adds a whole other level of responsibility on things. I'm saying this because she really wants a dog. And I do too, but I think while we're still sorting things out, we've talked about this a lot, it's really important to go in with as little baggage to begin with, because there's going to be stuff you don't see coming, and I think for us that's going to be big. It's just taking the blows as they happen. As you said, it might be that suddenly she may have events at night too, and then who's making dinner, who's going to get groceries, who's doing stuff like that. It's easier to play as a team when it's just the two of us. It's just a little bit easier to roll with the punches.
Yeah. Do you think it's important? I mean, Matt, you haven't lived alone. Lauren, you have lived alone. Do you think there's a better way for people before they move in with somebody that they should or they shouldn't, or at least have some basic skills down that they should understand about themselves? Or what do you think are important things before people want to live together with their partner?
I think the biggest thing is being self-aware, knowing and aware of your partner as well, knowing how you like to live and what blind spots you might have is the most important, because then you can address them. Then you can figure it out. There's certain ways I do things. There's certain ways that Matt does things. And understanding that for the most part, nothing is right or wrong. It's just a difference in how we approach things, I think is the best mentality. I'm not going to say for everyone there's, not wrong ways to do things. I think that there's definitely extremes and wrong ways
Yeah.
to share a space with someone. But for the most part, I think Matt and I just have slightly different approaches, and understanding where those approaches are different is the most important thing.
Just like a
Matt, do
little
you
color,
want-
like I'll give a great like example from our relationship. So like for her, like it's very important that like the bedroom, bathroom are super clean, like there's no clutter in those spaces. And I'm more of like a outward clutter. So like in common spaces, like I like to see them like as stripped down and as clean as possible. Like entering and leaving a room as you see it, but like within my own space, I don't care. Like my closet's a mess, and that drives me insane. Which is fair. Like I acknowledge the way I do it is wrong, but like
Yeah, like for example, like I want to be able to open a drawer and have everything like folded inside. Matt would rather stuff everything into the drawer so that the facade looks nice. That's kind of a good way to
exactly. Like, yeah. And so, like, neither of those is intrinsically that much better than the other. But because of that, we've already talked about, like, when we do live together, a good division of work or labor is going to be, like, I do common spaces, she does, like, the bedroom, bathroom, or, like, some variation of that, because that's what matters to both of us. So rather than, like, forcing the other person to conform to what matters to you, just making the change you want to see. Obviously, don't, like, start throwing shit on the floor in the bathroom, but like just like within that, like understand it means a lot to your partner, and if they have a complaint about something you're doing there, be understanding where it comes from. It's not going to be what you feel is right or wrong. And I think a lot of that comes from, back to your original question, like I think it's important to live with roommates before you live with a partner, because it teaches you that give and take. But I also think that I have missed out by not living alone for an extended period of time. So like the forced independence stuff and not always needing like someone around is something very real. Like I feel it when I travel. Like when I go back to my hotel room at night, like and I'm alone like 3 or 4 days a week, like I feel very lonely. Like it feels very empty. Like I miss like the liveliness that another person brings. So I think there's something to be gained from both. But I definitely think like in terms of learning how to share a space, having a roommate is probably a little bit more important.
I'm actually going to push back on something you said.
Uh-oh.
You said understanding that it means a lot to your partner to have, the counter empty or whatever. I think if you have that mentality about there being this weight attached to it, oh, it means a lot, oh, it's blah, 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 it can kind of take away from the fact that, like, it's just a freaking counter. Because, yes, there is a division of labor, there is, like, an agreement that you guys came to, but kind of like the first question that we talked about, when there's a lot of pressure like that to hold to some sort of expectation, that we can lose sight of the fact that like someone just left something on a counter by mistake or didn't think about it, and it's not that deep, and we can move forward. Now, if it becomes like a recurring problem that drives the other person completely nuts, that's, I guess, maybe a little different, but maybe my example of leaving something on a counter wouldn't apply to that scenario of being such a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think a general rule that can be kind of applied to everything so far we've talked about has just been like, when in doubt, kind of give the other person the benefit of the doubt. Like, sure, I mean, you might have not want to be like told what to do, or like, hey, I think you should do that, but you're thinking, hey, it's coming from a loving, trusting place. And B, maybe they had something happen today, a tough day, something happened that maybe it's spiked their mood in a different direction, or something didn't go right today at work, or things like that. I think if you just always have that mindset of like, you know what, I don't need to exaggerate this as more than it is. You're right. At the end of the day, it's just a dish on the counter. Just put it away. Do it. You don't have to kind of have this weight of like, it's gonna mean something more. Because then also, kind of like what we were talking about earlier about counting chips. I mean, because then all of a sudden it's like, well, I do all this stuff that you want to. If it was up to me, I really don't care about this. I'm just doing this because you want to do. And well, I'm doing all this stuff because you want me to do it. So I think it's like in that kind of same vein, doing things just because they just need to be done and somebody needs to do it. And so I think that's a great point that you both bring up. And I'm just, I'm thinking about, again, it shifts. Everything kind of looks differently once you start having those shared walls together. And I think for a lot of people, it
Those
gets
what?
kind of scary. Can you hear me?
What'd you say?
Shared wallets.
Oh, okay.
I said shared wallets. I said shared walls.
I heard wallets too. That's why I was like,
It's
what?
like blended finances. Like, please no.
Yeah, no. I said shared walls. I said shared.
Well,
I mean,
that's important that we
already
clarified that.
Lauren's already jumping ahead. Well, this was actually going to be something I was going to mention though. I mean, how dates look. Like, I don't know what your philosophies are as far as who pays when you guys go out or things like that. I don't know if you make it up, you kind of have like an untracked account, or is it just Matt that's paying or just Lauren that's paying? I don't know what you guys do. I mean, is that something that's going to be in consideration as far as now you're going to be sharing utilities, you might be sharing rent expense, you might be sharing different expenses that you hadn't already before. Now it's going to look different because you're in the same walls together.
I think we can answer this one together. Like,
Yeah.
It's gone through phases in our relationship. So like when we first started dating, like I paid for everything, and then once we both had like summer jobs and stuff like that, she started like paying for some stuff, not the big things like going out for a date and stuff. Like I would always pay for that. And then as like our financial situation individually has changed a lot. So like she's in grad school, like she really doesn't have a primary source of income. Like it would feel weird for me to ask her for her to pay for anything. And like I even feel weird when I'm at her space and like I eat her groceries. Like I feel like I am directly depleting from a very limited resource, and I feel yucky about it. Like it's like I think I'm literally taking food off her plate. Just like
I'm like the ant with the stick over it.
exactly. But then like we've talked about it, and I've talked with other people like our age that are in similar situations. Like as she transitions to employment, hopefully,
Yes, I will be getting a job. I will not be jobless forever.
making it proportional. So like obviously like I still want to pay for dates. I want to buy her drinks, like stuff like that. Like there's like certain like element of romance in having your partner pay. But then like for the bigger life stuff like rent and stuff like that, like I think we both agree that we'll keep it proportional to income. So that way nobody's more or less strapped for cash than anybody else. And like there's a bunch of like rules about like what sort of apartment you can afford like with X combined income, and then from there we'll calculate what each of us pays. Like I think with like the big life decisions it's important to split, but I do think there's something an obligation like as like the mate of the relationship to like pay. Like I want to treat like her well and like her make her feel taken care of, and that includes financially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of discourse around, oh, who should pay, all this other stuff. But I really do think that it is completely dependent on your situation and what the two of you agree on. And the agreeing part is super important because both parties need to agree on that. And I think that we both have a understanding and an agreement on what's going to happen when I do have a job, especially with things like rent and how we're going to split that, but also not nickel and diming each other if we're both in a good spot. I think that can get kind of messy, and I personally find that a little bit weird if we're both have jobs and things like
each
that.
other for like $3.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
like that is ever going to happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I think that we have a good grasp on how we're going to handle the big things, which is really important and not something to avoid talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I speaking from personal experience, I can vouch for the trap of sometimes you feel like I want to treat my partner well. I want to pay for her things. I want to pay for certain things. And then all of a sudden it kind of flips like, well, I'm paying for all this stuff. So therefore I need to be in control. And it's like, that's not the mindset to have. It's just about what is really working for you both as a individual unit. And it's like, you don't want to try to deprive each other. I mean, you're not sitting here, Lauren, and being like, oh yeah, I just need to take all Matt's money and expecting him to pay for everything. And Matt's not also feeling like, well, I feel obligated to pay for everything of Lauren. It's just kind of like, the natural agreement that you've made, you've come together, and obviously the most important thing is discussing that and, having that important, and
Yeah, I mean,
being,
let me be clear. Money can get tied up into other things with like emotional weight. And it is super, because it is a power imbalance. At the end of the day, if someone makes more money than the other person, that is a power imbalance. And it's, that's not something to be taken lightly. That's something that you guys need to understand that it will get tied up in other things and how you're going to go about that and what that means for you guys, because it's not just something that you can push to the side and money's its own thing.
do you think, this might be putting you out on the open here. Do you think culturally, that it's a good thing that men are expected to pay for dates? Or because I can honestly see it both ways, where I do feel like there is the element of, I mean, a masculine man paying for dates, treating his girlfriend, his wife, whoever, in a highlight, paying for stuff, things like that. But then there's also the element: do they feel like they need to do it in order to have power over their partner and things like that? So let me get both of your opinions on that. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Compromise.
So when I think about people saying men should pay for dates or whatever, I always think of like first, second, third, fourth date. I'm not really thinking of like our situation where we're in like a relationship. And in that case, I think that the person that should pay for the date is the person that asked the person out on the date. And I think that that's only fair, right? And typically that is in a heterosexual situation, that is like the guy asking the woman on the date. And so that makes sense to me. If a woman is asking a man on the date, then maybe that gives her a window to pay. I don't know. I haven't been in the dating field for a really long time. But now that we're together, I don't necessarily think it has a lot to do with Matt being the man. I think it's more to do with the fact that he has a job and makes more money than I do as a grad student.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I personally, and like having been with someone now for a long time, like it gives you like a window and goes into like prepping for a date. The girl pays for the date before she even gets there. Like she is like getting like treatments done. She's getting products. Like the amount of products that you have is insane, and it's no different than like anyone else. Like that's like a girl that's our age. Like the amount of money you guys put down to look as good as you look on a date. Like you paid before you showed up, and I think there's an obligation then for the man to like step up a little bit. And then it's, as you said, it's not true in non-heterosexual relationship. Like one of my best friends is gay and he always splits. And I think that like there are different balances depending on the structure of your relationship. So it's like whatever you're comfortable with makes the most sense. But for us, and from what I've seen from like us and like our friends that are also like in similar relationships, like the girls are going all out before. Like a guy's like throwing on a nice sweater, like pants, like really low investment of time and effort and money as well. So I think there's something to like bringing something to the table because she's already bringing something before she even shows up.
Yeah, I'd like to set the record though.
That's why I said time, money, and effort.
Yeah, I do spend about half an hour blow drying my hair. Okay, so whenever you see me and it's nice, and I mean right now it's a little crazy, but whenever you see me and it's nice and combed over and got a nice little part, I do take the time. Maybe not as much as you, Lauren. Maybe not as much as you.
So we weren't worth a half hour of your time, is what you're saying?
No. You guys. I've been prepping for this since let's see, last week. Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Wow.
you guys are worth plenty of time. Lauren, was there anything that you wanted to add on to that point?
No, I think
Okay.
Matt covered it. That was good.
Oh, sweet. Let's keep going here. I mean, just in general, what do you think are some other good just building blocks on a relationship that you have, maybe looking now outside from, you guys been together for 8 years, maybe kind of boiling it down to the first few dates? What are some things that people should be looking initially, and maybe that they should kind of run from? I'm not saying individual qualities, but maybe just misalignments and things like that. I will say, I think there is a whole culture about just kind of like dating for fun. And I mean, people can do what they want. I don't necessarily agree with the whole aspect of dating for fun. I mean, it should be fun, but I think what you really want to do is find somebody that you can connect with, find somebody that you can build with, find somebody that you align with, and hopefully, that kind of leads to marriage down the line. Whether you choose to do a traditional marriage or at least, just be together for a long time, whatever that means to people. But what are some good elements just coming from your experience together in a relationship for such a long time? Being as young as we are as well. What could be some good building blocks there?
Yeah, I don't feel qualified to speak on what to look for in first dates and things like that because Matt and I had our first date when we were 16, and I think the scenario was a lot different.
Where was it?
It was at Wayland Square Diner on Valentine's Day.
2 days after Valentine's Day, February 16th.
Okay.
Oh.
So
No, it was not. We became official.
yeah. So I don't want to speak necessarily on that, but one thing that is huge for compatibility, and I would say it's the number one thing that makes Matt and I the most compatible and the most similar, is that we both love doing things, trying new things. We are always down to do a new restaurant or go to a museum for the most part. Just like do some new activity, have fun with friends, meet new people. We love that, and it's why we love living in a city and why we're excited to keep living in cities for years to come. That is the biggest thing that brings us together. And so finding someone who is down in the same way that you are and in this, like in the same way. If the two of you want to sit on the couch or more homebodies, that's totally chill too, but make sure that you're both on the same page is my biggest advice.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to say the same thing. So it goes back to what you said earlier, Will, that like whenever we do stuff, like we always had stuff planned. Like in the years that we've been friends, and I'm always looking for someone to share experiences with, and so is she. And like that is exactly what I've always wanted in a partner, is someone that I can like travel the world with and have a blast doing that, and then also someone that will like, I don't know, we got to Labubu Palooza this year, and we waited. and the most fun part was standing in line, just
We love people watching.
Love people watching, but standing in line.
Not because we're mean, just because we're curious about
95 degrees in the sun for an hour and a half to go look at Labubus, and I had a blast.
Wow.
It's just like she's someone that says yes to things, and I think I am too, and like that's something I really value as a trait in people. And so
And Survivor too.
and Survivor, like another thing, we go to watch Survivor watch parties when I'm not traveling. Like, and it's just fun, like just doing stuff that like I wouldn't necessarily characterize as like in my wheelhouse to begin with, but then they become things I'm super passionate about or have a great time. And what she said's perfect. Like that one's a work in progress, but
It was
but yeah, I think
Labubu. What was it? Labubu
Palooza. So this like THC coffee shop thing like did a Labubu pop up with like 4 different like Labubu tables.
Man.
And stuff.
Okay.
The people attending are exactly who you think they would be.
Wonderful people, by the way.
Terrific
Well,
people.
except they had tantrums.
Oh. Okay. Well. Okay. But aside from the Labubu I don't even know
Palooza.
Palooza.
Like Lollapalooza? Labubu
Oh, like
Palooza.
Oh man. Well, that's awesome that you guys find stuff like that.
Yeah, and it goes to our point. And there's some people who like that is exactly the opposite way they'd want to spend a Saturday. And like some people, like we have 2 friends that love doing puzzles, and like finding someone to like puzzle with for them was exactly what they were looking for in a relationship. And so, and there's nothing better, worse, or whatever, but it's what you like to do. And so it's not saying every interest has to be the same by any means.
Because it's not.
It's not. Like there are things she likes to do that I really like. She went to a Phantom of the Opera this week. Not really my thing, and she knew that, so she like found a friend to go with, and there was no like expectation of me to go because she knows it's not something I'd really get my money's worth from. But when there's stuff that's really important to both of us, we'll always go and support.
Yeah.
And so it's just finding that balance, but just like a general, I feel like it's more important to find like a general attitude towards life. Like and that's where the sync is. And unfortunately, we're in a generation where people go on a first date and they don't immediately get into deeper topics, and then they're like, oh, it didn't last. Like it's not. And I think people, obviously I haven't been on a first date in a very long time, but like.
Yeah, we are not qualified to
Yeah.
get first date.
But I think people give up too soon. Like I don't think they actually see the person on the other side.
Where do you think the intersecting point is between opposites attract and having to have similar things that you connect on, because there has to be a mix. I mean, like you guys were saying, you have to have the things that you both connect on. You want to be there together, you experience together, shared experiences, shared griefs. I mean, that's how people connect. But also, is opposites attract a real thing? Does that provide an element of spontaneity and getting out of your comfort zone and trying new things? So where do you guys feel that intersection is?
I think it goes back to what Matt was saying about shared attitudes, and also I'll add shared values. The way that those things manifest are not always going to be the same. So, you know, Matt and I have both said that our attitude is that we like to go out and do things, whatever. But his example was that I wanted to go see Phantom of the Opera and he didn't, which is totally fine. That might be considered like an opposite thing. Like I like musical theater and he doesn't, or whatever. But that's too much of like a micro example to extrapolate to being opposites, I think. So I really do think it's more of a zoom out. And as long as you're not opposites with your values and your attitudes on life, then any sort of other comparison doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I like that, attitudes and values. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would say I'm a little bit more of a risk taker. Like, I like going out and like going on hard hikes. Physically, yeah, like a physical risk taker. Like, I love like adrenaline sports. Like, I love fishing. I love being outside and like doing stuff like that where I'm like in the elements. And that's like Lauren, like some of that stuff, and will share some of it with me. But there's certain stuff that she really just has no interest in, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it's like, I think it's the one place where like I do have some independence in doing stuff like that, where it's like, I want to go do some, and there's no, just like there was no pressure to go do Phantom. Like, I'm not going to make her go like fish with me for 6 hours. That's going to be, she's going to hate it. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, don't make your partner do things they're going to hate.
Yeah, that's
Like, that's not going to be good for either of you.
Yeah, that's good advice, guys.
yeah.
No, that's great. I like that, and I like that it's kind of framed in the way of like, we both like doing new experiences. We both are, and even though you said, Matt, you're more of a physical risk taker, but you guys seem like you're in alignment with being somewhat risk takers in general. I mean, and you like having that adventure. So it's almost like those are kind of the overlapping macro things, and then you have all these little micro incisions into it where, sure, you might not expect your Saturday to be at Labubu
Palooza.
We're gonna get this right. But it's you guys going and trying a new experience together, and that's kind of what I took from it, is like, that's the macro thing. It's like you guys that like going to new things, trying new things, experiencing new things, and you do that together, and that's going to be a good foundation. Just as we wrap up here, I mean, what is I don't know if you guys think about it. I don't know what you guys looked at, going forward to either together or just individually, but what is the next 5 years look like for you guys as you experience this kind of post-grad college life, this era, whether it's in the relationship again or just kind of individual, like what is that looking like?
You're going to get me in trouble, Will.
Good. That's the whole purpose of this.
I think like the big life things coming up for us are, and individually, moving in together this year, getting engaged in the next year or two is definitely like, see, I'm already in trouble.
I got you. Don't worry.
And then like after that, like getting married and like potentially like settling into a life with, maybe at the tail end of the 5 years, like kids might be in the picture. And so there's like a bunch of big life moments ahead, and I think along the way we're both going to have like our own individual journeys. So like Lauren's starting a new career, like that's really exciting, and I think just creating space for a little, and I think we go back and forth on this a little bit, but I think creating space for flexibility, like you never really know the cards life's going to deal you, and just being willing to take it with a little bit of grace. I think frankly is a little bit more of a strength of mine than hers, and like she's someone that gets super excited about things and visualizes how it's going to be, and so when it doesn't always pan out exactly like that, it's hard to not feel a little disappointed. And like I love how excited she gets about things because it's infectious. Like I'm so excited because she's excited about it. And I think over the next 5 years, there's going to be so much change for us that it's going to be important to just take everything in stride. And I think that's true for anyone starting a relationship. Is like you got to be willing to take the bumps in the road because there's going to be bumps. Like no matter how happy people are together, there's always going to be like a little bit of friction. And I feel comfortable being in a relationship where I know I can manage friction. Like at the end of the day, like we'll have an argument, and I'll literally ask her like, "Are we friends again?" Like just as and it creates like a natural divide between when
like
we're
that.
arguing and like it ends it. Like it's like we've apologized, we've done our things, and there's like a little bit of awkward air in the room, and so it's just like being like, "Can we be friends again?" Like, and that is just like a little thing that like kind of seals the discomfort. And I think that's like going to be the big thing for us for the next 5 years. Is just taking the bumps in stride.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard to answer questions about the next 5 years when I don't even know what the next year is going to look like. I graduate in March, and I'm in the process of applying for roles in, major cities, New York, Chicago, Boston. And so he can move anywhere for his job as long as it's near an airport. And I don't even know what city we're going to live in. I don't really know what our life is going to look like. Of course, I have wonderful ideas of what our life is going to look like. But right now, things are very up in the air. So I actually think I have a better idea of what 5 years looks like than a year from now, because as Matt said, I think we'll be married. We'll be considering starting a family. And I think we want to stay in a city for a little bit. I think he hit the nail on the head.
Awesome. Guys, it's been so great having you guys in my life. It's so nice seeing you guys grow up together, just seeing you guys as individuals, us being friends for a long time. I really appreciate you doing this podcast. Thanks for joining. Thanks for sharing your experiences. This has been really fun. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right.
You probably learned more about our relationship than you have in the 8 years that you've known us at this point.
Probably. So, I don't know. We'll see with what I'll do with that information, but thanks again, guys. All right. We're done.
Serious.
We're done. Okay.